Hi, I'm Matt Marshall, founder and CEO of VentureBeat, and I'm here with Mazen Rawashdeh, the CTO of eBay, one of the world's largest online marketplaces. And we're talking about the company's sustainable data center strategy. Mazen, welcome.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good. So Mazen, eBay is home to more than 132 million active buyers, about 100 million monthly visitors. And you are doing a lot of processing on customer data, product data, and you need to think about sustainable data centers to do that. And you have a goal of 2025 to be 100% running data centers on renewable energy sources, and you're saying you're at 90% now. Can you tell us how you're doing this, how you're moving forward on this sustainable investment strategy?
That's a great subject to talk about. In 2022, we avoided around 1.6 million metric ton of carbon emission. And today we operate our data center at almost 91% renewable energy, and that's solar, wind, and hydro. So it's core value. As we make decisions, we always think of sustainability. We have, at any given time, there's 1.9 billion items for sale at eBay. And as you said, we serve around 132 million active customers on site, and we are over 190 markets around the world. So when we think about sustainability, it's at a scale. And one of the things we've done in the last few years to make sure how we operate our site, how we run our data center, as we shifted more toward open source, we build our own hardware, and we understand our workload. So put all these things together, sustainability is something we were able to accomplish as we look at these different vectors of activity and scale for our site.
What are some of your biggest challenges right now in terms of when it comes to sustainability in the data center?
At this time, generative AI is a big subject. Every company's talking about it. Every CTO, every CEO, every CFO is talking about this one. And for us, trying to figure out how we can completely take advantage of what we can do at eBay. And you would think of generative AI, it's all about data and infrastructure. And when I think of that, I think of, what's our footprint in our data center is going to look like between CPUs and GPUs. Most of data center majority of their footprint is CPUs. Same, that's true for us at eBay. So I look at that as an opportunity for us at eBay. And it's also what technology we're going to use to be able to look at that compute capability as a fungible capability. So you can shift load between GPUs and CPUs, because we are finding out there's different workloads historically we ran on CPUs, but that workload, looking at generative AI, is going to be more efficient running in GPUs. I anticipate data centers will shift probably in the next 2 to 3 years to be running 10-15% of their footprint in GPUs, and that's going to generate tremendous amount of heat. There's an opportunity to harness that heat and do something good with it.
Right. Yeah. There's clearly a certain amount of improvising you need to do here, right? And you mentioned keeping things fungible to a certain extent because the market is so dynamic. You're moving to Gen AI. Just curious how you go about maintaining that fungibility.
As far as the fungibility question, it's all about the workload. Trying to understand our workload and figure out how we can make it fungible between CPU and GPUs. But double click on that a little bit. Think of training, fine-tuning, and inferencing. Today, can you make sure how you lay out your infrastructure and how you deploy your infrastructure of GPUs, it's deployed in a way it can be fungible for these three vector of work? If you think of it, most of the training and the fine-tuning is going to be centralized, but the inferencing is going to be on the edge most of the time. So how can you accomplish that? And granted that sometimes your inferencing is going to be in the CPUs, not in the GPUs, but sometimes it might be in the GPUs, and we want to be able to have that fungibility. And that's how we're trying to look at kind of the future design of our data center, how we can accomplish that. Think of, you and I talked 3 years ago, and when COVID started, traffic of our site went up 40%. And because of that infrastructure and the platform we build and modernize, we were able to absorb that entire workload and activity at a no incremental cost of our infrastructure because of the way we design our platform or our services and the infrastructure to be fungible. In fact, some of the figures, which is I'm proud to share, because of that work and what we've done, we were able to self-fund other parts of our business. For example, we were able to support more than $1 billion in ads revenue and around $2 billion of payment revenue. These were all capability we were able to support because of the fungibility in the design we did in our backend infrastructure and the platform, especially at a time where you have a tremendous increase in the traffic and activity. And the last thing you want to do this by increasing the cost of the platform, because you'll end up passing that cost to your customers, and we care about our customers.
We talk about open source, and maybe I just want to double click on that. This allows you, my understanding from a conversation is this allows you to design your own hardware, right? So there's the first point, which is if you have your own cloud, that might be more affordable. You have more control on sustainability decisions versus, let's say, just going with AWS or Google Cloud or where those decisions are made for you.
You've been around long enough, and you know different companies has different strategy into how to run their platform. I don't think there's rights or wrong here. I think each company will look at what are the constraints and what are the opportunity and what kind of resources and expertise they have in-house. We made that decision to build our own private cloud, but also we build our services to be hybrid cloud, which means we could run some of our services on a public cloud as we run them in our private cloud, and we take advantage of that sometimes. But mostly our core infrastructure runs on-prem in our private cloud.
Wanted to switch to the apparent land grab that's going on in terms of the power industry. We talked not too long ago with your counterpart at PayPal, who was referring to a power grab going on in Arizona, right? These big data centers are being built with hundreds of megawatts, and you're anticipating the move to Gen AI, and so there's going to be this need for processing. Are you seeing the same thing where you're having to bid more aggressively on power needs? And I mean, and renewable energy is a nice thing to commit to 100%, but is that harder going than expected?
One of the things we've done in the last few years as we transform our platform, as we shifted into open source and optimized our workload based on the hardware we design, the key is, can you run your data center on a higher utilization? And on average, a lot of data centers, they run probably at a 60 to 65%, 70% utilization, probably lower. We used to be, a few years ago, running our data center at a 65% utilization, which means you are wasting a lot of power. Right now, based on the transformation and how we build our platform and the things I just shared with you earlier, our data center runs on average 80 to 85% utilization. That's a tremendous amount of efficiency in the power consumption. But from a sustainability, I always say the best data center and the most efficient data center you have is the data center you don't need to build. Otherwise, you will be challenged with power, especially in different regions where you're going to be, because the big players in those regions, they're going to consume a lot of the powers available from these grids in those areas.
Do you feel that you would support, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but more legislation to enforce these good habits? Do you feel pressure from others who are maybe not necessarily making the same investments and therefore getting them by with a cheaper power bill or maybe less cost to their infrastructure?
I don't believe regulation is the right solution here. I think education is the right solution for companies, and getting companies educated on the value of going after renewable, and also showing incentives in doing that. I think that always work better than regulation. Of course, at some point, regulation will come into play, but I don't think it should be the main reason why company need to think about sustainability.
Finally, I wanted to come back to the cloud investments that we've seen over the last couple of years. Some interesting publicity from folks like Bank of America that have said that they have saved billions of dollars by moving away from the cloud, moving away from folks like AWS or Apple. I think was referring specifically to their investments in AWS, moving away and saving hundreds of millions of dollars, moving on premise. It seems like it's the opposite direction, again, away from the cloud.
I think it depends on the scale. I think there's a pros and cons of both options. Obviously, some companies like eBay, we figure out when you look at the pros and cons, we made a decision, and that decision turned to be extremely valuable and pays tremendous dividends for us, and it will continue to do that. But we have to make an investment into making sure we have the right skill set, the right engineering, the right different type of engineers you need to have at the company to build that platform. And so, as you said, some other companies realize that, and when they look at their bill every month, how much they pay, and they figure out they could do the same at a much, much lower cost. But I think the right strategy is being able to build your software services and capability at a hybrid cloud model.
Well, Mazen, this has been a fascinating conversation. I want to congratulate you for what you've done there on the open source and investing early and getting out ahead there. And I'm looking forward to staying in touch over the next year, especially 2 years, to see if you've actually hit that ambitious goal of 100%. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. That fascinating conversation. Thank you, Mazen.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and look forward for our next conversation.
Me too. And thank you for watching. For more stories about the tech revolution, subscribe to our newsletters and check out our other VB in Conversation videos at VentureBeat.com.